When Melinda left to go on a weekend trip with some of her girlfriends, she left her boyfriend George home alone for the time being, or so she thought. When he sends her a selfie from the bedroom, Melinda immediately notices that something is off in the picture. When she sees it, she tries to get in contact with George as soon as possible. There is something sticking out from under the bed. George has no idea what he has just caught on camera. He didn't even look before he sent the picture to his girlfriend Melinda and had already planted his ass back on the couch in front of the TV. But then he suddenly starts getting a lot of messages. They are all from Melinda. What the hell was her problem? Could he not just have a couple moments to himself on her trip away? He even sent her the selfie she asked for, but then he sees what the messages are about. George's face turns completely red when he reads the messages and immediately checks the selfie for verification. But Melinda is right in what she saw. "George, what is that under our bed?" So what was under George's bed? Was he hiding something from Melinda? Or was he hiding someone? Before we start, smash the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new stories. For the first time since they got together, George and Melinda were going to spend a week apart from each other. Recently, some arguments had started building up more and more, and they figured maybe some time away from each other was just what they needed. So Melinda was going to go on a trip, leaving George with the house to himself for the weekend. When the trip was edging close, Melinda thought that George was acting a bit strange, almost nervous. Could it be that he wasn't feeling ready to spend the week alone, or was there something else going on? She wasn't sure what it was, but he assured her she should go, almost like he was pushing her away. Melinda left that next day still slightly concerned. She knew this is what she needed, and probably what George needed as well. Some time away from each other to think and have fun apart. When she got back, things would be better, or at least she hoped so. While the original plan was to also have no contact at all during the week, it only took a few days for Melinda to get the urge again to start texting with George again. She also just wanted to see his face again and hoped he was willing to send her some pictures. To her pleasant surprise, George was actually really open to text with Melinda. He told her he had been missing her too. Even just those few days apart was enough to reset things apparently. Melinda felt overjoyed, but that feeling would soon make way for worry. Lots of worries. The texting stayed consistent for the next couple of days, and they even called each other once or twice. Melinda had been sending George lots of pictures from her vacation as well, but she had not seen his face in a while. He had not been so forthcoming with this yet, so Melinda came up with an idea. She decided to jokingly ask him for a couple pictures from him in his vacation home. George seemed happy to play along with this joke and started sending her selfies he took of himself all around the house. It was more fun than he thought it'd be, just walking around the house and taking pictures. But he was not paying close enough attention. Melinda was smiling from ear to ear when she was scrolling through the pictures he sent her. She was so lucky to have a man like George in her life. Everything just felt so perfect for a second, but then Melinda got to the selfie of George in their bedroom and she felt her world stop. She had to look twice herself and even showed the photo to her girlfriend so that they could confirm what she was seeing. But they all noticed the same thing. There was something poking out from under the bed, and now she was quite worried about just what this could mean. At this point, it could still be anything, and Melinda tried not to worry. She took deep breaths and told herself there was probably nothing going on. But when she asked George what it was that they were seeing, he suddenly stopped responding altogether. He didn't even answer Melinda's calls anymore. Now Melinda knew that something was going on and felt a stress race through her body. What was going on at home? What was George hiding from her? Was there actually someone under the bed, or was she just imagining things? When Melinda first told George that she was going to go away for the week with her girlfriend so that they could spend a week apart, he was fairly excited. He loved the idea of having a little freedom, as he had felt like Melinda had been smothering him recently. The build-up to this trip went very normal and uneventful, but the day before Melinda was set to leave, George got some unexpected messages from a number he most definitely recognized but never expected to hear from again. It was definitely not what he had been hoping for when they started planning this. He tried to not make it too obvious that these messages really had him feeling some type of way, but George had always had a shitty poker face and he feared that Melinda could look right through his bullshit. But to his surprise, she didn't say anything and they just kept on preparing. The first days that George spent alone in the house, he tried not to think about the messages. He just wanted to try and forget them and maybe they would go away. He knew there was no way he could respond to or act on them. It would be totally wrong of it. When Melinda started texting him again after only a couple of days, it felt like a relief and a welcome distraction to George. This was just what he needed to get his mind off the other text messages, and he was more than happy to hear from Melinda again. It meant she was missing him too. As their conversations picked up again, the uneasy thoughts that had been bothering George slowly faded into the background. But that sense of calm didn't last. In the middle of the night, A loud pounding on the front door jolted George awake. His heart raced as he sat up in bed, fully alert in an instant. For a brief moment, his thoughts jumped to Melinda. Had she shown up unexpectedly? Had something changed? Trying to steady himself, George made his way downstairs. After taking a deep breath, he slowly opened the front door. There was no one there. Confused and unsettled, George stood in the doorway for a moment, scanning the darkness. Maybe it had been a prank. Maybe he had imagined the noise altogether. With no sign of anyone outside, he closed the door and headed back upstairs, telling himself it had been nothing more than a disturbance from a half-formed dream. Back in his bedroom, George noticed something odd. His window was open, letting in the cold night air. He closed it quickly, puzzled, because he didn't remember opening it before going to sleep. Brushing off the thought, he climbed back into bed, hoping to forget the entire incident. Sleep didn't come easily. By morning, the tension was gone. George woke up feeling refreshed and strangely carefree. His mood lifted even more when he saw a message from Melinda waiting on his phone. Throughout the morning, they texted back and forth. Their connection felt stronger, and George found himself genuinely optimistic about where things were headed. Since reconnecting, Melinda had been sending him pictures from her vacation. Each photo showed her enjoying the sun and scenery, and while George was happy for her, the images also reminded him that he was stuck at home while she was away having fun. Trying not to dwell on it, George did his best to be supportive. Melinda, sensing his mood, suggested a playful idea. She encouraged him to send her vacation photos of his own, even if they were just taken around his house. George went along with it. He spent some time taking selfies around the house. Some were lighthearted, some a bit silly, and others more personal. It was surprisingly fun, and for a while, he felt connected again instead of left behind. When he finished, he sent all the photos to Melinda at once and settled in front of the TV. Distracted by the game starting, he didn't bother reviewing the pictures before sending them. George had expected Melinda to respond with jokes or playful comment. Instead, the messages he received were filled with concern. He couldn't understand how things had shifted so suddenly. Melinda, it turned out, had focused on one image in particular. In the background of his picture was something sticking out from under the bed. In fact, not just something. It appeared to be hair sticking out from under the bed, and now George was concerned. In fact, if he was honest with himself, he was freaked that someone could be in the house with him. He set his phone down on the table and rose up on shaky legs. He was going to have to investigate, and he wasn't so sure about that. He dropped to his knees and looked under the bed. There was nothing there. George began searching the room, opening the closet, checking behind doors, and scanning every corner. There were no signs of anyone else, yet the certainty that he wasn't alone refused to leave him. When he heard his phone ringing downstairs, he assumed Melinda was calling, worried that he wasn't responding. He hurried back down the stairs. Halfway down, George froze. Someone was standing in his living room, holding his phone. His instincts had been right all along. There really was someone else in the house. It was Tamika. Before Melinda, George had been in a relationship with Tamika. While things had started well, her behavior had become increasingly controlling and obsessive. Eventually, George had ended the relationship and moved on, believing it was over for good. It wasn't. Tamika had never accepted the breakup. Even after George began dating Melinda, Tamika continued to stalk him, refusing to let go. Over time, her behavior had escalated so much that George had been forced to file a restraining order against her. He had kept all of this hidden from Melinda, hoping the past would stay buried. Now Tamika was standing in his house, speaking to Melinda through his phone and warning her to stay away from her boyfriend. George grabbed the phone and demanded that Tamika leave immediately. He made it clear that he would call the police if she didn't go. After a tense moment, she finally agreed to leave, but not without insisting that they were meant to be together and that nothing could change that. Once she was gone, George called Melinda and told her everything, the stalking, the restraining order, and the truth he had been hiding. Melinda was stunned. She had known Tamika existed, but she had never imagined anything like this. Ultimately, George and Melinda chose to move to another state. It seemed to be the end of Tamika's stalking since she had no money to continue to follow them that far. Instead, they seemed like they were finally able to live a normal life and enjoy themselves again. There was no more worry. At least, they were pretty sure things were going to be okay from now on. Other than having to deal with Tamika, the whole experience of having a vacation apart seemed to have done good things for them. In fact, they felt pretty good about the way things had gone and how they were doing as a couple as well. The two were happier than ever, and they were even planning to get married soon.